Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Manachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pivakacharya, also toward the Srimad Lila Bhavista's Divine Grace. Shilabhai Charan Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Jagadguru Bhadita Bhavana Srila Prabhupada Ki. Khatraj Srimad Bhāgavatam Ki. Shri Radha Govinda Ki. Gaur Premanandi Haribol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanandi Haribol. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chainavam Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Dhyarayat Nastareshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Srimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 19, The Killing of the Demon Hiranyaksha, Verse 27. Shito Sayanam Tam Akunta Varchasam Karala Damstram Paridasta Tachadam Jadayo Vikshya Sasamsur Agata Aho Imam Ko Nu Labeta Samstitam Shito Sayanam Tamakunta Varchasam Karala Jam Damstram Pari Dasta Dachadam Ajadayo Vikshya Sasamsur Agata Aho Imam Ko Nu Labeta Samstitam Shito Sayanam Tamakunta Varchasam Karala Damstram Paridasta Dachadam Jadayo Viksha Sasamsar Agata Aho Imam Ko Nu Labeta Samstitam Shito Sayanam Tam Kunta Varchasam Karaladam Stram Paridastadachadam Jadayo Viksha Sasamsar Agata Aho Imam Ko Nu Labeta Samstitim
Ajadayo Viksha Shashanshuragata Aho Imanko Nilabheta Samshritin Shoshayanam Tam Nakuntavarchasam Kalaradam Shtam Paridashtadachadam Ajadayo Viksha Shashanshuragata Aho Imanko Nilabheta Samshritin.
Shito on the ground, Sayanam lying, Tam Hiranyaksha Akunta unfaded, Varchasam glow, Karala fearful, Namstram teeth, Paridasta bitten, Dat Chadam lip, Aja Adaya Brahma and others, Viksha, having seen, Sasamsu, admiringly said, Agata, arrived, Aho, O, Imam, this, Ka, who, Nu, indeed, Labeta, could meet, Samstitim, death. Translation. Aja, Brahma, and others arrived on the spot to see the fearfully tusked demon lying on the ground, biting his lip. The glow of his face was yet unfaded, and Brahma admiringly said, "Oh, who could meet such blessed death?" Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Although the demon was dead, his bodily luster was unfaded. This is very peculiar because when a man or animal is dead, the body immediately becomes pale, the luster gradually fades, and the decomposition takes place. But here, although Hiranyaksha lay dead, his bodily luster was unfaded because the Lord, the Supreme Spirit, was touching his body. One's bodily luster remains fresh only as long as the spirit soul is present. Although the demon's soul had departed his body, the Supreme Spirit touched the body, and therefore his bodily luster did not fade. The individual soul is different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when he quits his body, is certainly very fortunate. And therefore, personalities like Ma and the other demigods eulogized the death of the demon. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmidam Jina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapidam Dhyena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shivta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savaduntam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vidamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Sarato Bangur Mama Mandar Mater Gati Matsar Vasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Dibyad Brindaranya Kalpa Drumada Srimad Ratnagara Singhasana Sto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prestalabi Savyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Bamsi Bhattatasti Taha Karshan Venu Svanar Gopir Gopinatha Sriye Studam Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Krishna Varnam Tvisa Krishnam Sango Pangasya Parshadam Yagnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajantihi Sumedhasaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shito Sayanam Tam Akuntavarchasam Karala Jamstram Paridasta Jachadam Ajadyo Viksha Sasamsar Agata Aho Imam Ko Nu Labeta Samstitim. Aja, Brahma, and others arrived on the spot to see the fearfully tusked demon lying on the ground, biting his lip, the glow of his face yet unfaded. And Brahma admiringly said, "Oh, who could meet such a blessed death?" Lord Brahma and the others, as it's said here, the last we heard for them, their overwhelming desire to the point of intense, everything was focused on this one thing: kill this demon. So it's quite interesting, strikingly surprising, that at the very first few moments after this long-awaited and desired killing of this demon takes place, everything shifts. Admiringly said, "Oh, who could meet such a blessed death?" Seeing this unprecedented miracle, mystic potency, of Lord Viraha. For those who don't understand how Krishna is omnipotent in any incarnation he takes, he accepts. Earlier in this canto, it's described how Mahatma Vidura, who worked very hard to deliver fallen souls like Dhritarashtra, he couldn't elevate him to become a Narottam, or topmost perfected human being, but he at least tried to bring him to the position of Dhira, being steady, and getting him to realize that he better quit his hearth and home and idea that he's the king, living in an embarrassed situation after Prabhupada said he lost everything, both men and money, but still he's living like a household dog in the home of Yudhishthira, etc., etc. So we got out. So anyway, who was Mahatma Vidura previously? Yamaraj. We could say he was cursed because of a wrong, judicious rendering on the Mandakya Muni, who had playfully pierced an insect with a sharp straw in his youth. So therefore, in his full-fledged adulthood and probably elder stage of life, as a self-realized Muni, he was in a situation where he was about to be speared under the king's order under false pretenses or wrongful conviction, and at the last moment he was saved. So he thought, this is crazy, how this Mandakya Muni, how am I being cursed like this? So he went and he cursed Yamaraj, you become a Sudra. A Sudra is not going to be a high court justice, what to speak of the supreme justice for the entire universe. So he became Vidura. But he became Vidura during the direct presence of Lord Sri Krishna. And was very, very important in the overall Leela of the Lord, particularly in terms of the triumph of the Pandavas ultimately over the Kauravas. So Prabhupada says, sometimes the Lord and his devotees have to play the part of low creatures. And we see that one of the features of the demoniac in this age of Kali is they, just like the demon, they take a pose or a disguise as Putana, or the calf demon, Vatasura, or the Pralambasura. I'm one of the coward boys. Yay! Lord Balaram, this carrier is not who he appears to be. And when Lord Balaram actually realized the situation fully, and he's being carried away by this Pralambasura, then and he shows his real form in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the empowered devotee, the demon must abandon his shape-shifting disguise. The sun always exposes the evil lurking in the darkness and purifies it. Krishna is like the sun, can purify everything, even a filthy place, stool and urine, and not in the least bit be affected by that contamination. So, a big smack on his head, and bam, finished. So, the caste Goswamis, you have to be born as a Brahmin. It's described earlier in the first canto in regards to Kali looking to destroy, to enter into this Kali Yuga. The first pinprick or loophole was to make the Brahminical order fall down, because when the Brahminical order is eliminated, when the head is cut off, the rest of the social body is completely topsy-turvy. You can see in the 1970 footage of Prabhupada initiating devotees in Los Angeles, it's on Following Srila Prabhupada number one or possibly two, I think one towards the end, we have a 19 or 20-year-old Mahatma Das, Mahatma Prabhu, having the Brahmin thread being personally put over his body by Srila Prabhupada. And you see Srila Prabhupada has this huge smile on his face. Now this is interesting. This is right before Prabhupada left America, very much discouraged how some envious propaganda had filtered back from India, and he considered that it had contaminated some of his leading disciples and filtered throughout the movement. And he was very upset, and he went back to India, perhaps never to return. That is a whole story in and of itself. Ultimately, Prabhupada was very set on remaining in the West, Los Angeles, the Western World headquarters. Why are you making me leave? He's having a dialogue with the Lord. And I have this wonderful temple, I want to develop it. Well, if you leave and you go back to India, I'll give you a temple by many multiplications times better than this temple. And Prabhupada couldn't refuse. And ultimately that was understood to be Sri Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan Dham. What to speak of all the other temples? And Krishna is still fulfilling his promise to Prabhupada with all the magnificent temples that ISKCON is building throughout the Indian subcontinent. Just New Delhi itself, where Prabhupada struggled alone. There's a whole chapter in the Lilamrita, Lifetime in Preparation. New Delhi, 1950s, struggling alone in the wilderness. No, crying alone in the wilderness. Kind of the same. No. Devotee of the Lord does not care about poverty, obscurity, defamation. He's simply fixed on his service to the Lord via knowing that his spiritual master is the direct, most dear associate of the Lord, and his pleasing the spiritual master is his life and soul. He's completely conscious of that relationship, and nothing else matters. And ultimately, because the spiritual master, Lokanath Lokera Jivana, he's the life and soul of the people, pleasing the spiritual master ultimately pleases everyone. A devotee or a soul in their natural motivation, their natural mood, they want to do good to others. And we see that throughout human society when there's some horrible situation created by the ill-motivated demons, that good people rise to the forefront in purview of ultimately of good people or of the Lord himself. Maybe they're not noticed at the time, and at great personal risk to themselves, they try to save people from the situation. Just recently, in the last century, there was World War II, and a fascist ideology was unleashed on the continent of Europe, and certain groups of persons were deemed unfit to even be alive, and program was made to exterminate everyone, practically speaking, in those aforementioned considered groups by this fascist regime. And some people, they dedicated themselves to try to save as many people as they possibly could. There was one person in England, his name was Nicholas Winton. He was 29, 30 years old in 1938, and he could understand what was happening with Adolf Hitler becoming the Chancellor of Germany in 1933, and their ideology and their intent. And 1938, it was clear that war would soon break out, which it did on September 1st, 1939. So he made a program to rescue children from, in particular, Prague, Czechoslovakia. And he was able to get 669 children out on the idea that they would be given foster homes in Britain. And he did that, and on September 1st, 1939, finished. No more. He did what he could. He kept a book with all the records, all the, of who's who, where they came from, where did they go to. He put it in a trunk in his attic and just moved on with his life. His wife, looking through the attic 50 years later in 1988, found it. And it ultimately reached the proper personalities who were amazed and understood its significance. And he became a reluctant hero overnight. He was even knighted by the Queen of England, and memorials were made to him, and he just thought, I just was doing what I was supposed to do. I didn't think anything of it. So this is showing the mood of a good person. This is the sign of a devotee. He wants to do good. Of course, saving, and some of those children that he saved went on to become very prominent personalities. One became a member of British Parliament, became like very advanced scientists who discovered cures for certain diseases, so many different things. And from those 669 persons, I think the number I saw was something like 6,000 people, families, numbers of people who came from these persons who were saved. So that's very nice, but to save people from repeated birth and death, and to give them the position that they can very, very soon means the best could be in this very lifetime, but after several lifetimes, even 3, 5, 7, whereas if they don't receive the gift of Krishna consciousness, and even just the smallest amount of contact, svalpam apiyasya dharmasya, 8,400,000 species of life, minimum. People come again to the human form of life. You read at the end of this canto, after going through a systematic order of all the species of life and being purged of all of their sinful activities, they're again born as human beings on this earth. But if they again associate with sensual-minded people who are only interested in satisfying the tongue, belly, and genitals, they again go to hell as before. So not just 8,400,000 species of life. They could do it again. 8,400,000 species of life. How many lifespans are each of those species of life? The amount of time is inestimable. Trillions of years. What is the lifetime of Lord Brahma, which is equal to the inhalation and exhalation of the Mahavishnu? Trillions of years. And those who have not completed their business and gone back to Godhead, they're again held inside the body of Mahavishnu and again put out after such a long period of time. So 3 or 4 lifetimes, 2 lifetimes, 7 lifetimes, 50 lifetimes, it's nothing compared to that. So our responsibility as devotees is to come to an understanding of how great a gift, how great an achievement, an attainment is love of Godhead, and not ordinary love of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all Gaudiya Vaishnavas recognize as the combined form of he is the combined form of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. The love of Godhead that Lord Chaitanya is distributing is Braja Prema Bhakti, and Lord Chaitanya himself personally, as the combined form of Lord Chaitanya, is distributing the topmost form of Braja Prema Bhakti, that which is evinced by the damsels of Braja. In the opening verses of the Adi Leela chapter 7, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, I wish I could say it exactly. The internal potential devotees of the Lord, that's a exalted way of describing the Madhurya devotees, the gopis of Vrindavan, are the Lord's personal associates. Only with them does he advent to propagate the Sankirtan movement. Only with them does he taste love of Godhead, and only with them does he distribute love of Godhead to the people in general. There's an entire chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, which is entitled, who can say? Attaining the Supreme. That's all about how to die properly. And Krishna gives a description of how the yogis, there's a favorable time, favorable situation. And Prabhupada brings it all on home for us. The devotee is not concerned about favorable time, favorable place. We see how many residents of Vrindavan, they take vows never to leave Vrindavan. Because if one dies in Vrindavan, one is guaranteed to go back to Godhead, back to, well, in devotees' case, Goloka Vrindavan, but it's described by the Goswamis how those not on that standard, they will go to Vaikuntha, where they can develop themselves further. The daughter of one of Prabhupada's disciples, a married couple, she was retarded, and she found some drugs or pharmaceutical products in the garbage and ate it, and it caused her to leave her body. And they asked Prabhupada what was her destination, and Prabhupada said, anyone who dies in Vrindavan goes back home, back to God. Prabhupada is leaving Vrindavan to come here to New York City, which by all logical comparison you would think would be the diametrically opposed place to come, right? Let's see. I would like to go to the lowest regions of hell. Which would be the best place to go to help me to achieve that? Why are you leaving? You must stay. You're old. The fitting, crowning glory, everyone realized, was of Prabhupada's preaching in New York, from rags to riches, which is a mundane saying, but from obscurity to full triumph, living in a Mayavad guru's windowless yoga studio, having to walk 25 minutes, 30 minutes in the freezing cold, one way and then again back and back, just to take a proper bath and eat one cooked meal in a day. Living on the Bowery, being chased out of a place where he was given to stay. Prabhupada, like we complain, where we have to walk up 4 flights of stairs, 4 stories. It's actually 5 stories. 4.5, however you want to count it. So go look at 94 Bowery. It's just as tall as this building. Prabhupada had to walk up and down the stairs. There's a story in Miracle at 26 2nd Avenue, Mukunda Maharaj's tell-all of how the early days and everything. And so he was given a piece of paper by a friend, hey, you should check out this Swami on the Bowery, So he's ringing the bell in summertime, and there's no answer, but he sees the window open. So he was through had a good arm. He was only 24 years old at the time. He threw a rock, or like maybe pennies or something, and it ping on the window, and Prabhupada stuck his head out, and can I come see you? Prabhupada walks all the way down the stairs, right? Somebody is locked out, on some night escapade out there, and Prabhu, I'm locked out. Can you come down and open the door for me? Grumble, Should have been in at 10 o'clock when we locked the door. Nonsense. So Prabhupada willingly, happily came down. So ultimately, 10 years later, he's riding down Fifth Avenue in an unprecedented parade that the city had no more parades on Fifth Avenue. This edict was made in the early 1960s. How did you get the permit? Prabhupada asked Tosan Krishna. Tosan Krishna and Hansarupa Prabhu, they were the team to get Prabhupada's Samadhi built in Vrindavan, ultimately. But anyway, very good friends and associates. They actually acquired this building and built the ashrams along with Kurmarupa. So Tosan Krishna is a real get-her-done kind of person. So I just signed on the permit, what will the parade consist of? 3 hand-pulled carts. And they're thinking, okay, it's, like a juice cart or a, something, not a big deal. 60-foot tall, really wide, thousands of devotees. Bhakti Sundar Maharaj, he was previously Jagachakshu. He was from Venezuela. Prabhupada Memories just released a new edition, 1 hour of his memories. And he's saying that the temple president there said that anyone who collects their ticket will be able to go from Venezuela to New York Rath Yatra. So they all just went on a frenzy on book distribution, and like everybody made their ticket. It was like something like 40, 50 devotees. They chartered their own plane so they could come here. And devotees came from all over the world. So Prabhupada in triumph. Prabhupada wanted Prabhupada to be glorified in his presence to see. So that's very nice. But if that doesn't happen, posthumously, after our death, we're fixed on serving Krishna, pleasing the spiritual master. That's the only validation or notice that we need. And we're playing our part in the flow of Lord Chaitanya's Sampradaya. And that is our satisfaction. Bear with me. Srila Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj always gave credit for his preaching success to his Guru Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj gave me a task and always I was discouraged by my godbrothers, but I did not forget him even for a moment, and I was determined to follow my duty even though sometimes I did not like to do so. I also do not feel separation from my Guru Maharaj. When I am engaged in his service, his pictures give me sufficient strength. To serve the spiritual master's word is more important than to serve him physically. My Guru Maharaj used to say that if people do not come to hear this philosophy, don't be discouraged. You sit down in a room and try to preach. The four walls will hear you. That's what Prabhupada did at 100 West 72nd Street. And now, today, we have the treasure of hearing Prabhupada narrate the entire introduction to the Srimad Bhāgavatam. Prayers to Queen Kunti, Shukadeva Goswami's prayers to invocation to Srimad Bhāgavatam, Process of Creation, Chapter 4, Second Canto, and so many other things. All alone by himself, but he was preaching to the entire universe, just like he is now. How many people have heard Srila Prabhupada in some form or another? What to speak of us, whose life and soul is to hear Prabhupada as much as possible on a regular daily basis. Prabhupada was preparing his Bhagavad Gita as it is at that time. So, in attaining the Supreme, Chapter 8, Prabhupada encourages us that we do not have to be concerned about the time and the place and the situation if we're engaged in the service of our spiritual master, because Krishna will handle everything. We are on a much higher platform of consideration. Prabhupada even, you can see how the devotees, they wanted to take Prabhupada in May of 1977 to Rishikesh and drink the water of the Ganges there high in the Himalayan mountains. And at a certain point, there was a big storm, and Prabhupada, it was a very ominous, out-of-season storm. And Prabhupada called for Bhakti Charu Maharaj and said, "The time for me to die has come. I wish to leave my body in Vrindavan." May, June, July, August, 3-4 months later. What is this just sitting here waiting to die? I want to be with my disciples. I want to preach. An itinerary was made. London, New York, 340 West 55th Street. Gita Nagari, Los Angeles, Hawaii. And Prabhupada said, if I die in New York, you can make my samadhi on the roof. I'm very much pleased to understand that although you are now living away from Vrindavan, your mind is there. That is a very good sign. That is the symptom of loving affection for Krishna. Prabhupada wrote that in Vrindavan on the 18th of September 1976. Prabhupada was not well in the summer of 1976, which proved to be his last Western tour. After the 10 or 12-day triumph here with Rath Yatra in July, Prabhupada went to London and he was not well. Then he went to France. You can see the Prabhupada at the New Mayapur farm. He wasn't going to go. He was going to directly go back to India, but Bhagavan and other leaders came personally to London and begged Prabhupada to come. The climate is very nice and warm, which it was. It was a heat wave, and Prabhupada agreed to go. He flew to Tehran and then to India. This is in August, and he remained there for many, many, many months. You can look at Hari Sari's diary, or if you're listening to lectures at the time, months and months. So Prabhupada already was, but he's encouraging. You can be in Vrindavan in the right frame of mind wherever you are in the world. So the final thing I'll say is, we put this on the group chat the other day. Yes. So if you become Krishna conscious once, even at that time you were so-called unconscious, still Krishna is with you. He is not forgetful. He is not forgetful. Therefore, he will give you the proper result. Don't think that at the time of your death, because you are so completely out of consciousness, therefore there is frustration. No, there is no frustration. There is no frustration because your activities are already recorded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just like you see, I was mentioning these heroes of the World War II, Oskar Schindler, he's perhaps one of the most famous ones, Schindler's List, and he's using all his money. He was a war profiteer in the beginning, that was his motivation. But at the end, he just spent all his money on saving, and the people that were working with him for several years, quote unquote, as forced laborers, he wanted to save them. And the number ultimately became 1,100. And then at the end, he lamented greatly. I could have saved more if I had saved more money, if I did things right. So that motivation is very nice. Prabhupada said, keep your health very nice, live as many years as possible. Our only aspiration is to satisfy the predecessor acharyas. More and more souls contacted by the holy name, more and more books distributed, more and more people brought to Krishna consciousness, etc., etc. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gananati Bhi. By numerical strength, quantity leads to quality. Your activities are recorded. The non-devotees, their account is kept by Chitragupta and Yamaraj. But the devotees' account, Krishna personally has his book. Very nice pen, very nice handwriting. Your activities are already recorded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's one false shruti in the Srimad Bhāgavatam. If one reads this chapter, I forget which one it is, or this Leela, then one is brought back home to Godhead where he's properly received and worshipped. Remember that when you're in the subway and some crazy person comes and does something not very respectful by comparison. Properly received and worshipped. Recorded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated within your heart. So therefore there is no question of frustration. You just practice while you're in good health, while you're in good body, while you're in good consciousness. Just practice this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. And the result is guaranteed. Remember how lovingly and affectionately Lord Chaitanya personally gave the association to the greatest chanter of the holy name, Srila Haridas Thakur, and personally performed his funeral ceremony. That is our line. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
You mentioned about...
Oh, who could meet such blessed death?
That's just on the question I'm about to ask. You mentioned about dying in Vrindavan, and so many people flood to Vrindavan to die there, and whether their desire is to attain mukti or whatever their aspiration is, but we see a lot of cheaters in Vrindavan as well. I heard a story a little bit ago, maybe a couple months ago, with Bhakti Anugraha Janardana Swami.
Yeah.
And he was walking one day because there was this mystic Babaji or yogi or whatever who was cheating people and hypnotizing people and taking advantage of them. And so he went up to them and said, stop cheating Krishna's devotees and things like that.
And what happened?
So I wanted to ask, like, what happens to those
Yeah,
people?
well, what happened? You got me curious.
I don't know. I don't want to speculate.
Marge and me are old
That's all I
friends.
heard. That's all I heard.
Huh?
That's all I heard. He just went up to the guy and was like, "Stop cheating Krishna's devotees," and hopefully he stopped.
I wanted to ask a question yesterday, but I didn't think it was such a lofty question in Krishna Kripa's class. So if we have all evolved from apes and chimpanzees and primates, you would think there'd be no monkeys, they'd all be human beings. So why are there so many monkeys? Why are there so many monkeys in Vrindavan? Hogs, dogs, monkeys. So Prabhupada described Vrindavan as high-stakes gambling if you're not doing correctly. You could make great spiritual advancement, but you could bury yourself also by performing sinful activities in the Dham. So therefore it's recommended that those who are not on the proper standard of sadhana, 3 days. Or Prabhupada said that, devotees who come to the Krishna Bharam Mandir, this is before there's like a plethora of guest houses and you can live anywhere and do your own thing, You just stay in the temple, Prabhupada said. 3 days or maybe 1 week. I can't remember exactly. Parikram. After that, full service. The idle mind is the devil's workshop. So, I think for us, I'm not going to say I think, you think. No, but Prabhupada reluctantly left in July of 1967 to recover his health, and practically within a month or 6 weeks, Prabhupada's, I'm ready to come back. And he's writing you look at the letters that Prabhupada wrote during that time, devotees are feeling intense separation, and there's the whole book, volume 3, only he could lead them. Swamiji, you're going back to India. Could maybe one of your godbrothers come in and fill in for you while you're gone? And Prabhupada started crying. My spiritual master was no ordinary spiritual master. He saved me. If someone comes and speaks one word different than what I've told you, there'll be great confusion amongst you. And then Achyutananda, one of the New York devotees who went and accompanied Prabhupada, they go to this place in New Delhi, and it's some kind of Shakti Ma temple, and and there's like all these different types of people, and there's like one big yogi with a big white beard, and he's sitting in like a trance, and there's all these people looking at him in like wonder-struck astonishment, and it seems like it's awe and reverence, and this must be a great personality. And Chutananda says, "Who is that?" And Prabhupada just walks by with it, practically not even looking, just some yogi, offhand, And then the Chutananda communicates back to all the devotees that, it wasn't India or, or Indian culture that was uplifting us and enthusing us. It was Prabhupada directly. There was no one like Srila Prabhupada. The description of where Prabhupada was staying at Radha Damodar, Gaurachand Goswami, chewing pan, and, and like he's talking to Achyutananda and Ramanuji. And you've seen the Radha Damodar, the big deity of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami on the left side. How do you like him? He looks like General Chowdhury, or a name from the British Raj or something, And they say, who are these guys, And they ask Prabhupada. They're caste Goswamis. and then the other people, like, there was one person who was like stealing Prabhupada's mail or like opening the letters and taking donations out. Like, read the Leelamrita to find out more and see the details. So our mood is to distribute Krishna consciousness all over the world. And Prabhupada was, Vrindavan is inspiration only. Our real field work is all over the world. So to stay in Vrindavan as a full-time servant of Srila Prabhupada is a very rare position, and we shouldn't try to, cut corners and cheat on that. Especially, Prabhupada said Vrindavan is for renounced life and retired life, which basically translates into elder stages of life. To stay in Vrindavan when you're young and, you have desires for marriage and, and like just kind of being a young person, don't stay for a long time. Just concentrate on, see the Leela stands, do service. I've seen many people go afoul in Vrindavan by not doing correctly, So we don't want Krishna to have to make a decision on that, make a complicated case, before the judge. This is a complicated case here, oh my goodness, Anything else? Krishna Kripa.
Just a quick thing. I sort of recall that if somebody commits sinful activities in Vrindavan, then they take birth as an animal in Vrindavan, and then they go back to Godhead.
Yeah. Would you like to live as a monkey or a dog laying in the sewer water in the gutter in Vrindavan? Is that very nice? If you don't happen to be the top dog, then you're going to get bit, And like, you ever hear the dogs having this fierce group barking in the middle of the night in Vrindavan? Somebody's getting tortured practically to death, Not a very nice life, In 1999, during Purushottam month, it was in the month of June, it was very hot, one very old female monkey, like emaciated, just came and laid down right outside the door of the temple to the side of the temple where Radhashama Sundar's altar and the Bajai room is. And the devotees would put like watermelon slices. It practically couldn't move this monkey. And she was like sucking and chewing, and remained there for 2 or 3 days. And then no one knew or saw, but this happened in the middle of the night. It was there at nighttime. The devotees they're like, you're going to take care and everything's nice, and the monkey had just was gone at Mangalarti, completely vanished. The watermelon rinds were there, Imli Tal, there's a cow that stays in the temple room. And there's another place, I forget exactly where, there was a cow that would come for Srimad Bhāgavatam class every day without fail. And when the Srimad Bhāgavatam, and very calmly and peacefully sit down, and when the Bhāgavatam class was over, she left and returned the next day. So Vrindavan is a very mystical, magical, amazing place. So yes, you get born like that, but you have the story, you can read it in length in the 5th canto of, the whole planet is named after him. Maharaj Bharat, Bharta Bhumi, Bharat Varsha. He becomes a deer in his next life, but he was completely Jati Smarana. And he didn't have anything to do with his dear family or anything, and just waited for death in that body. And his renunciation and renunciation of the materialistic way of life and his determination to achieve perfection was so great as the great Brahmin Jud Bhatt, that he couldn't care less about being disrespected. He didn't need any, love or affection from other people. He was so fixed in his Krishna consciousness. So we want to go straight. We don't want to go down to have to go up, Anything else? We're over time. I hope we're not. Those who want to eat breakfast are already doing so, right? Okay.
Confirmation as to what you're saying. Vraj resides within the heart of a pure devotee. So the goal to go to these holy places is to hear and serve and chant as much as possible, and then keep that within our hearts so we can actually leave and die in Vrindavan outside of the physical realm of Vrindavan.
Oh, Prabhupada demonstrated by his own, and he did leave his body in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Prabhupada made a call in London. He had a not overwhelmingly terrible health crisis. It was something that could be fixed, but then Prabhupada decided, we've gone far enough, take me back. So he was attentive like that, Prabhupada was such a transcendental adventurous. You read in Chasing Rhinos, another adventure with the Swami. So Prabhupada, where would you like to go now? And we're getting calls to go here and there, but there's Brahmananda in Africa, the dark continent. If we establish, then we'll be on all continents, which our godbrothers, Keshi Hunta and Trivikram, ultimately made 7 continents about 6 or 7 years ago by, they didn't open a temple, but they went and did a Prabhupada Guru Puja in Antarctica. And Shyamasundar said, I knew Prabhupada would say Africa. He's just a bold adventurer. So taking some risk, you put yourself out, then Krishna is going to help you. And Prabhupada helped Prabhupada get back to Vrindavan. And Prabhupada thanked Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was inspirational and facilitator to bring Prabhupada to London. In this condition, simply a bag of bones, you have brought me back. Krishna will bless you for that. Hare Krishna. So, for a devotee, death is something wonderful, not something to be afraid of. Patraj Srimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol.